We want to live the glamorous life. We don't need a man's touch. We want to lead the glamorous life without love. It ain't much. Three, a two, a one. Hey, everybody, welcome to Read This, Read That. I am Jacque Reed.
And I am the person whose last name is Reed, but who hasn't met every celebrity on earth, dined with them, been in cruises with them, and who has not written a book about them for some reason that I could not explain. I'm that Reed, Joyanne Reed, who's met no one in comparison to Jacque.
That's not true. Let's talk about you at the Essence brunch this year.
Girl,
Hello,
please.
keynote.
You probably knew everybody in that room and probably already been out to lunch and dinner with every single celebrity. And then that celebrity there, you know, one time they fixed my flat. I had a flat tire. And then that celebrity over there one time went with me to like try on new glasses. And they were like, oh, these glasses are really cute. And then that one, but I've never written a book about it because I don't know, just not sure why. I don't have any really stories to tell.
So for context, Joyanne is trying to get me to write a book about my interactions with celebrities and like famous people and interesting, infamous people over the years. So we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, the fact that you haven't done that, Mrs. Journalist, is a crime against journalism. Like literally, we'll just be casually talking, y'all, about nothing in particular. And Jacque will go, oh yeah, you know, one time Franklin Delano Roosevelt stepped on my foot, but it's not really a big deal. And then Eleanor said, Franklin, that's Jacque Reed's foot you're stepping on.
Well, I gotta be that old.
I don't know why I picked Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I pulled him out. Okay, it's the ghost of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Okay, fine.
My God. Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, I do realize, like, you're the one that.
And then Ronald Reagan said, Barack Obama said, you know what? Let me go ahead and drive you to the grocery store. You seem like you need more bread. I'll take you. I'm Barack Obama.
Listen,
and we're friends.
You have interviewed and had company with so many famous people. You stop.
And then I was on the cruise, and Oprah Winfrey said, hey, girl, can you pass the crudité?
Oh, I got a great Oprah Winfrey story, though.
See?
When I finally met her. But we're not talking about that today.
The book is going to be called Joy Reid Said I Should Have Written This 10 Years Ago. .org.
No, but I did meet Oprah at a Barbra Streisand concert at Madison Square Garden. And then at intermission of the show, a whole bunch of us went backstage. It was like Oprah and Gail and Mike Wallace and like all it was crazy. Rosie O'Donnell. It was crazy. I was like, well, how am I?
That's the name of your book. How am I here? Why do I know all these people?
How am I here?
My journeys in bumping into famous people at the Five and Dime.
How am I here?
It's like so I interview famous people. Jackie's like at dinner with them. Like I'm like, I've interviewed prominent people. Jackie's like, you know, yeah, then we jumped out of a plane together. And I was like, what? And then they, you know, and he pulled my ripcord and I was like, oh, George Clooney, you're such a card.
Anyway.
So glad we're besties.
Me
oh,
too.
Samuel L. Jackson, can you tell another joke about snakes on a plane, given that we're at brunch together because we're friends? Oh,
Listen,
Denzel, you
Jackson,
silly.
Samuel Jackson wished you a happy birthday,
Yeah, but he's not. I don't know him personally.
but his wife gave me a ride home from church one time.
Do you see what I'm saying, y'all? Do you see
The
the
actress
degrees and
LaTanya
difference here?
Richardson.
Samuel L. Jackson, who I am a huge super fan of, he might wish me a happy birthday. And I love Samuel. I'm a big fan. He's like, and then Sam Jackson and I skipped off to brunch together, and his wife is like my best friend.
She's not. She's just a really kind person. It was really nice of her to give me a ride home from church. But
Who else
anywho,
was at the church service? Jesus? Was Jesus in the front row? Was he on the main line? Did you tell him what you want?
hey, Jesus, what you doing up there?
You know, some of my friends south of the border call you Jesus. Isn't that funny, Jesus? He's like, yeah, that's pretty funny.
Oh
I'm
my
so glad
God,
we're
what are you
friends,
drinking? What are you drinking?
I mean, at this point, doesn't even matter.
Yes, it does.
I'm drinking from this Bumblebee glass, which
I
has a whole
love,
story
and I
behind it.
have to have that glass. I'm taking it. I'll replace it with something nice, but
Okay.
I'm switching it out.
Okay, it was a gift. So I'm drinking that. I'm drinking
Say it was a
Prosecco.
gift.
Prosecco with Saint Germain, a splash of raspberry liqueur, and a maraschino cherry.
That sounds
It's
delicious.
tasty. It's good.
I'll have to say that. What was that? Did you see
What are you drinking?
anything pop up on your screen that said verifying Microsoft something?
Uh-oh.
That was on my
Starlink.
screen. Exactly. That sounds
drinking, man?
delish. And I want to say that something new that we're doing is adding show notes from our episodes to our Substack page.
Yes.
We'll put the link to the Substack at here in our in our description in YouTube and on the podcast, so that you can go to our Substack and get all the show notes, which will include what we're drinking. Yes. And all the things. So it'll be a lot of show notes. So I'll give those details of what you just shared in our show notes.
We love that. And it's just readthisreadthat.substack.com.
Yes, for now, until we change it to readthisreadthat.com. Yes. One day, I am drinking Huzzy. You remember the Huzzy, the non-alcoholic cocktails in a can? Mm-hmm. This is Long Island iced tea with that bitters orange that I love so much, and some fresh orange juice and a little bit of maple syrup, which is very good for you, I should say. This is delicious.
Excellent. That sounds good. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a little stressed.
Don't you love this glass?
No, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
Girl, it was like 79 cents at Goodwill.
What?
Yeah. Girl, wow. I go thrifting. I love this glass. Look at that detail.
Well, as you know, I will thrift as well when I'm with the daughter who makes us stop to thrift on the road.
Mm-hmm. In the midst
of a 5-hour road trip.
Right.
We don't let
doubling the time. Doubling the time. I'll tell you, it reminds me of Gilligan's Island, which is supposed to be an hour-long tour, and it turned into a 3-hour
tour. A 3-hour tour. 5 years later. Gilligan! Skipper!
Years later. So what's your wind down? What you got to share today?
Well,
how's your week been?
My week has been pretty good. Started off the week on a trip with Miss Kim's birthday.
A good friend.
We can just say Miss Kim. It's Kim's birthday.
Okay. I'm like, we did dropping names and getting people in trouble.
I know we don't want to get people in trouble. We went on a very cool birthday trip, and that was really fun. So just had a little girlfriend time. But then now, what my wind down is what I'm going to be doing this weekend. I'm going to be leaving to go to the co-op. We have a co-op. There's a whole long story about how we have this co-op, and it's taken a year and a half to renovate it because, it's a co-op. And so you have to go through a whole co-op, the politics of cooperative life.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sleep in it for the first time. But the challenge is I have not deghosted it yet.
That was the first thing I was going to ask.
So
Where are you going to do that?
Well, so I was supposed
You're going to sleep there without getting rid of the ghost?
I was supposed to be doing the deghosting tonight, but I had so many things I had to take care of here and home. I didn't have time to go today, so we're having to go tomorrow. So I'm missing my deghosting appointment. So I'm going to have to sleep in the apartment before it gets deghosted. Now, the good thing is, Miss Kim connected me with a very good pastor friend of hers who also, prayed with me, right before my last episode of the readout. So really good guy, pastor out of Miami. And so we have a group chat that we've created. And he has promised me that if I get haunted, I can call upon the name of the Lord and I can also text him.
So, what's he going to do when you text him in the middle of the night?
Pray the ghost away?
That's the plan?
Apparently. So me and the daughter are going up. We're going to try not to stop because we won't be able to stop because we're
wait a minute.
We're not driving
up again.
No, ma'am. No, we're taking we're taking, proper transportation, taking the train. So we're going to take the train and we're going to go up and I'm going to have to sleep there. Tomorrow night will be the first. By the time this airs, I will have slept. By the time this episode airs, I will have slept in the apartment for a couple of nights and we will find out if the old lady decides to visit me. The old lady who died in the apartment.
Girl.
Who lived in there apparently since like the late 80s. So she was in there a long time. So she might be a little confused.
Did she die? She died there, right?
See, they won't tell. See, well, the thing is when you buy, every building in New York is old, right? So you have to assume somebody died in every one of them. And they generally don't tell you. When we lived in a brownstone in Brooklyn that we didn't get a chance to buy because the Australians that owned it wouldn't sell it to us. The big firm that owned it wouldn't sell it to us. But they did tell us, because I guess there's not the same taboo about just being honest about this stuff from in Australia, that the woman did die in there, right? There was a woman who died in there. And we would, every so often we would hear something creaking and stuff, and we would just talk to her and we would say, "Hey, Miss Gladys, how are you?" But this one, I'm assuming that the woman did pass away in the apartment. No one hasn't admitted it to me yet, but I'm assuming it's true. And, we're going to see if she decides to pay us a visit.
It's mighty adventurous of you. You don't have any sage? Does sage work for that?
I'm going to sage it. I am going to sage. So when I get there, our friend Adrienne has promised me she will get me some sage. I'm going to grab the sage and I'm going to sage the place, make sure that I do the best, do the best I can without the man to really, umbooba-foo the apartment probably.
To do what?
Umbooba-foo it, get the ghost out.
Umbooba-foo it? Is that a real word?
No.
Okay. Like what? Umbooba-foo it.
You got to take obia. You got a little obia, a little something. Girl, I'm Caribbean. I don't know.
I don't know how you gonna stay in that place without deghosting it. I would be very nervous.
I am.
Why don't you just wait?
Because I don't want to spend the money. So, it's I don't want to spend the money to get a hotel when I have a whole apartment. Last time I was up there, when we did go for the apartment, go for the trip in which we did get a little detour, I bought a bed, I bought bedding. The apartment's ready for me. It's ready for me. The apartment is ready for me to sleep in it. I've got a tea kettle. I've got wine in the apartment. I've got wine glasses. I've got tea cups. I've got all the things I need. I am set up for success. And given that I've got all of those things, I've got towels. The apartment's ready for me. There's no reason. And I stay in old hotels that are probably haunted all the time. Yeah. And I don't not stay there. When we were in Selma, we stayed in a place that dated back to the 19th century. It was fine. So I figure this ghost is probably like friendly because she's a nice old lady. I mean, unless she's in there with other people that are mean, I feel like I'm going to be okay. Maybe she'll protect me from the mean ones. Let's just hope that this lady is in good humor, appreciates my renovations.
The spirit is in good spirits.
And that her spirits are in good spirit and she decides to be my friend. That is what we're hoping. If not, that pastor getting texted. Because they're the ones who are like...
do? Does he live near your place?
I mean, he's in Florida.
What are you going to do? Can you do a virtual deghosting? Don't you have to be there?
You
I
have to be
mean,
there.
correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, they have to be there.
based on The Exorcist, like you got to be there in the room. I haven't seen a virtual.
Well, we're not going exorcist because we're assuming there's not a demon in the apartment. Okay, just a ghost.
But how do you know?
Oh, if there's a demon, I'll just go to a hotel because I ain't staying overnight with no demon.
What's he gonna do?
The demon?
Hey, girl, just want to let you know, I'm not an actual ghost.
I'm a
Friendly or
demon.
otherwise. I'm a demon. Like, what are you gonna do? What's he gonna give you a heads up?
That's my wind down, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
What's yours?
I think I said I wasn't doing this anymore, but I'm gonna do it here. Let me tell you what you ought to do. Don't tell my therapist.
Okay.
Because I'm not supposed to be giving my 2 cents.
Okay, but I'll take it. Give it to me.
I think you know enough people in the New York area
to
find someone to deal with this before you put your head on that pillow. I bet you do. I bet you do. I don't know if it's an imam. I don't know if it's a pastor. I don't know if it's a priest. I don't know who. But I think you need to figure something out. Call Al Sharpton.
Well, Al, so I'm actually going up because I'm going to be
You're going to
at National Action Network, right? So I have something all day. So I'm not even going to be available to be at the apartment all day tomorrow because I have an event again in midday, and then I have the gala that night. So I actually don't have the time. I just actually have to go and do the events I'm doing. So I won't be able to be there. You have to be there physically for somebody to do it. So I'm just going to have to take my chances.
Why can't the daughter be there? Or the son?
You mean to let somebody deghost the apartment?
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
I think you need to have somebody take care of this before you all spend the night there and discover if it's a Casper-esque friendly ghost.
Or if it's a demon.
Or if it's like somebody from The Sixth Sense or a demon. I mean, you're so calm about this. I don't understand it.
I've lived in so many haunted houses. I mean, the reality is I have lived in so many. I mean, both the houses we lived in Colorado were mad haunted. So I'm used to living in haunted houses. It's not like I want to live in one, but it is a fact of life. I mean, a lot of people have died in America and it's a haunted country.
So do you think these ghosts are following you or are these new ghosts? Because maybe that's your squad. Maybe you have a ghost squad.
I have a goon squad, but they're ghosts. No, I don't think I'm just following me. And I'm gonna be honest. This is what I really think. I think there's a spiritual realm, and I think that there is an energy that gets left behind in the spirit, and I think it can be anywhere. And I think certain places attract it. And I think they attract it because of what trauma happened there, or if you go to Mississippi or Louisiana, I feel like every place you go is haunted.
Everywhere in the United States.
Or parts of Georgia. I mean, there are places where there have been lots of lynchings. This country ripped the land out from under indigenous people, had a civil war in which lots of people died.
And covered over grave sites. Covered grave sites. Destroyed,
yes.
Built buildings and houses and developments over grave sites. Yeah.
100%. And
why are they following you?
Well, it's not that they're following me. I think that wherever you go, if you're sensitive to it, you will encounter it. I think it exists everywhere and not everyone can perceive it, and some people have a stronger perception of. I don't have the strongest perception of them, but I think if you believe that there is that spiritual realm, you're just going to encounter it almost everywhere in America. It's a stolen country full of stolen land and lynchings and stuff. You know what I mean?
Have you seen a ghost? Have you?
Maybe. Yes. Okay. Let me tell you my ghost story real quick. This is going to be very short because listen, the people need it.
Talk about writing a book.
I'm knocking off my thing. Okay. I think I lost my earring. Hold on. I lost my earring back. All right. Let me tell y'all my ghost story. So I was staying at a hotel in Washington, D.C. And, I was, my Jason, the husband, went down for breakfast. I woke up a little late. And so he went down to go ahead and go to breakfast. And I was sort of lagging behind, and I said, okay, let me go take a shower. So when you have like the bubble glass in front of a shower where you can see what's outside of it, but you can't crisply see it. So I'm in the shower, and I know that Jason has gone downstairs to breakfast, but all of a sudden I see somebody, a man, walk by, but they walk past the shower.
In the bathroom?
Yeah, I'm in the shower behind the bubble glass, look around, and you see the shadow of the person just walk by, but they walk toward the wall and they keep going. You can't go through a wall. So I'm like, oh shit. This something walked past me. I'm in the shower. The wall is here. This person walks right past me and there's nowhere to go but the wall. And then they're gone. I'm like, shower's done. Time to go. When I went downstairs, I tell Jason about this. He's like, oh, he's like, I wasn't going to say anything, but he's sensitive to it. He's sensitive to those kinds of presences. He goes, yeah, I really felt like that place was like mad haunted. And I was like, and then we asked the waiter, we're like, have you ever heard anyone say that this hotel is haunted? And the waiter's like, oh, absolutely. Everyone says that. And we're like, and he goes, yeah, this hotel used to be during the Civil War. It was a hospital that was used to treat Confederate or Union soldiers, one of the two. And so he starts telling us all the hauntings people have seen there. There's the floor that we're on was the ward. So he was like, people will see a woman running down the hallway screaming because her husband died. People have seen different soldiers in full battle dress. This waiter is telling us, he's like, and he's in a very matter-of-fact way saying people say this hotel's haunted all the time. So he's like, this doesn't surprise me at all.
Girl, what in The Shining? I'm like, what the? So let me get this straight. Jason went downstairs knowing that this place is haunted, leaves you alone. You're showering by yourself. Some figure walks by. You assume it's a ghost, maybe because it goes into the wall. Did you come downstairs in your towel? Because I would not have been in there. I would have gotten out of that shower and ran into the hallway
screaming,
butt naked.
No, I did not do that. I literally was terrified. And I was like, okay, let me finish up the shower very quick. Got out the shower, put my clothes on, and went downstairs.
Baby, I would have grabbed whatever I could on the way, a robe. I would have had the towel on, and that would have been it. Maybe. I would have been out of there. And
you would put on a show.
Checked out.
That's why you know more people than me. It'd be like, ooh, look at Jacque Reed. Yeah, no, I just ran out. I got dressed very quickly. Went downstairs and was very scared. Like I actually was very scared.
But how do you get dressed?
Because like I said, the houses I grew up with in Denver, in Colorado, both of the second two houses we lived in, we only lived in three houses when we lived there. We lived on Vine Street when we first moved, and then when we bought we had a smaller house. And then when my mom got a better job, we moved to a second house, the bigger house. The second two houses was haunted as hell. And so I kind of I'm scared of ghosts, but I also have lived in houses that I definitely perceive to be very, very haunted. And you know what? After a while, it's like these things can't really hurt you unless they're demons. So you kind of have to regulate your terror.
How do you know they can't hurt you? What ghost etiquette have you?
They never hurt me. Like right. I mean, right. I mean, and that we're not talking about demons. Like, have you ever watched if you watch the Amityville Horror, those were demons.
Yeah,
that's different. That's a whole different level. Ghosts are just the spirits that just are lingering. They don't necessarily hurt you; they just scare you. But they don't
guys.
They're probably scared of you. They probably like, "What are you doing in my house?"
Just like the animals outside are scared of us. It all comes back.
It all comes back together.
It all comes back to animals. No, but the movie Poltergeist, right? Those weren't demons. Those were ghosts and spirits that were angry, right?
They were angry, right?
Over their land, their burial site.
Let me tell you, if somebody
they snatched that little girl. They weren't demons, but they took that girl.
Yeah, it's true. I think you got to know what you're dealing with. That's why you got to know what you're dealing with.
How do you gauge it? Like, do they carry ID that says
I'm a ghost that's gonna hurt
I'm a
you.
good ghost? Here's my
I'm a
card.
good ghost. I don't know. I honestly, I feel like you really can't know because it's so much bigger than us. You know what I mean? Like stuff like this is spiritual. And not everyone even believes it's true. I know plenty of people who just do not believe in this stuff at all. You know, a lot of people don't believe in it at all. I think it depends on your kind of cultural upbringing whether you even believe it. It's a very African thing to believe in the spirits, and it's a very Caribbean thing to believe in spirits. It's just a thing that we grow up believing. And so it's like when you encounter it, you just think, well, this is a part of the world. It's a part of the universe.
Yeah.
You can't do much about it. We have to live here with them. They were here before us. And you kind of have to learn to live with in a world in which there is spirit. And I just think you just kind of have to live with it.
Well, as a
But you do have to get
non-Caribbean,
them out. I mean, I've heard of stories of, Jason had an aunt who ran the ghosts out of her place, and she just basically ran them. You just get on the mills, come on the mills, and you can run them. You can run them out. Like you can actually banish them. People sage, you do all sorts of stuff to make them go. Make them go to the light. Go
when I
home to
tell
God.
you, never again will you and I sleep in the same space ever. I think they're following you. Are they?
Joy's here. Let's go hang out with her.
Here they come. Party, Joy's here. Come on,
Joy's here, everybody. Woo!
No, ma'am. Well, you fixed it. You just got one less potential house guest. I do not play with that at all.
At all.
At all. No.
No.
Well, I hope you are able to. You never take my advice, but I hope in this instance you find somebody to deal with that because you don't know what kind of ghost you're dealing with.
Fair. Firm but fair. Tell me your wind down, is Jackie Reed.
So my wind down is a few things, and I'll be quick. By the time this show, I will have completed my monthly 3-day wellness reset that I do the first 3 days of every month. And I interview live on IG Live. I'm about to switch it to Substack next month, thanks to you, the Substack fairy. I do 3 lives the first 3 days of every month with a wellness expert as a way to, how you may say, okay, this is the day I'm going to start my wellness journey. I'm going to eat this way. I'm going to work out. I'm going to do these things. And then maybe a week or two into it, you fall off. Maybe you don't make it. A lot of people start in January. Sometimes they don't make it to the end of January or they get to the middle of February. This gives you an opportunity to set a restart button at the beginning of every month, right? Wipe the slate clean, no judgment. We just listen. We don't judge in this situation. And so every month, first 3 days, I do this. And so you will be able to see that. So I'm in the middle of it. And I had this great woman on today who was really talking about food as medicine and gave some great advice on how to, if you feel like, and she eats vegan. If you feel like it's just too hard, I don't want to give up, my everyday pleasures of cheese and this and that. Cheese was the last thing that she moved on from when she became vegan. But she really talked about how her skin was really bad and how she had a lot of pain and inflammation and how she had gained all this weight after 6 pregnancies. She has 6 kids. Yeah. And so, so she's her wellness journey is incredible. She walks every day, no matter what the weather. And she was able to, like, I want to say her weight was like at about 240 something. And now she says she's still trying to lose, but she's like maybe at about 170 or something, and all by changing her diet and everything. Anyway, I have great experts, but I also have the woman who's going to be my guest on the 3rd that is an expert on burnout. And she has a podcast called Black Girl Burnout. And so really great guest. So I just want to encourage, I'm in the middle of that. And I always love doing it because it always inspires me, because those of us in this space are always like, well, we're not perfect.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have issues and, with being consistent with certain things. And we fall off, but it's a way to kind of restart the whole thing. So that's one wind down that I
Okay.
want to tell everybody, follow me for my 3-day wellness reset. And then I want to talk about some shows that I'm watching, because I want us to talk about The Residents. Have you started watching it yet? I know you're going to say
because
no.
Jason is supposed to watch it with me, and he is not getting it together.
See, this is why marriage is a problem. Yet another example.
I mean, because if I start watching it without him, he's gonna be like, "Why you start watching without me?" But he's not starting it.
It's so good. You really have to watch this.
Oh, wait, no, I got the wrong thing. The Residents is the one about the White House murder. The other one, what's the other one?
The White Lotus?
No. It's got a brother in it, and it's Sterling K. Brown, and it's a mystery. It's a murder mystery about the president getting assassinated.
Oh, yeah, he plays the Secret Service agent.
He's the Secret Service. That one is the one Jason.
Paradise.
Okay, that's the one Jason I'm supposed to watch. The Residents I actually started last night. That's the one with Uzo Aduba. That's the one I started last night, and it's dope. Yes. It's great. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? So good.
I
cannot wait for you to find out who did it at the very, like, you are going to scream. And like I said, you're going to love this because you're such a great history lover. There's so much history weaved in about former presidents and the White House.
Yeah.
Certain rooms, and like,
you're going to absolutely love the architecture of the White House, which is really fun. Yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah, it's so good. So I got a lot going on in my house right now.
I hear the dogs are going crazy
as we try to figure out the water situation.
Barking, yelling, shuffling.
So my water heater is being replaced right now. They turned the water off. Now they're turning it back on. And we're trying to see at this very moment.
It's like we're living with you. It's like we've moved in. Us and the ghosts.
I really feel
the ghosts are like, what are you doing to our house?
There are no ghosts in this house. Don't even.
Although why are you moving things?
There was a man who did die here who came to visit my family for the holidays one time.
Wait, who died here?
This man named Harry came here to visit, he and his wife. Yeah. And my grandparents, like everybody was here for Christmas, and he died up in my parents' bedroom.
Died right upstairs.
Right upstairs.
What a rude visitor. You come to the house. You're supposed to be getting hospitality, and you go and die in the bedroom.
I'm not going to call him
people
rude.
who are giving you hospitality. That's not very nice.
I'm just going to close this door.
He's probably still up there being like, well, that was unexpected.
He's like, kittens. We have kittens now.
He's like, wait, I just came over here.
Hold on one second.
I just came over here.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
This is crazy.
I wasn't expecting to see Jesus. Jesus, what are you doing here? All I did was come over to Jacque Reed's house, and all of a sudden, you're here, Jesus. What are you doing here? Well, I don't know. I think you might have died. Me? Died? Not possible. Oh, no. I think you died. When I died? Like 10 minutes ago. For real? For real. Well, damn. That was unexpected. That's not what I came over here to do. I know, but it be like that sometimes. Man, Jesus. It's rough out here. Yeah. Who are you telling? You remember how I died? Oh, yeah. I remember that was rough. You had it rough there, Jesus. That was rough. I know. Sorry, I just had a whole conversation with myself as the dead man and Jesus. Maybe I should drink again.
Okay.
While you were gone, I had a whole conversation as the dead man versus Jesus.
Good.
You can watch it back later.
I'm sure we'll include it in the show. No, but are you watching The White Lotus?
So I have not started watching White Lotus. I need to begin that. It's saved in my settings. So the things I started this one first, The Residents, and then I will start White Lotus after that. And then maybe at some point, Jason will get himself together so we can watch Paradise, which is the one I really want to watch the most. And then I'm also watching what is it called? The one where people separate their brain and become
Severance.
So I'm also watching Severance, but I'm watching that one with Wanjira, with my friend Wanjira. And so, of course, since she went back to New York, I have to wait till she's back so I can finish that. So it's like I keep starting shows with people, and then I don't want to like ditch them and keep watching, but then I want to watch because I could really watch Severance to the end. I'm on the last season. I'm like, dang it.
Why don't y'all just watch? Why doesn't she watch where she is and you watch where? Why do you have to be in the same room?
I think that's what we're gonna have to do because we were trying to be, we were trying to watch it as a team, but I think we're gonna have to separate and do it separately in separate rooms.
Don't tell my therapist, but I think that's what you should do.
You keep on exempting yourself from what your therapist tell you to do. Don't tell my therapist. You're on a podcast. You're telling your therapist.
She lives in the Netherlands or something. She's not.
She still see it. It's online.
She's on a different time. She's not watching. Anyway, so yes, that's my wind down. It's just what I'm too it's too much happening in my life right now. Like too much. This moment with this water heater situation. I'm like, of all they give you a window. They get the whole day. You want to come right before I start recording?
Of course. Well, you know what I would do, and don't tell your therapist. I would just ask the ghost who died upstairs what he thinks.
There's no ghost in this house. Don't even try it. There's no ghost in this house. You get that little look off your face. There's no ghost in this house.
That's because
I got your daughter coming here this summer. Oh, I'll know for certain.
Oh,
she's coming
do that.
She's coming to Florida for something. I don't know if she's still planning to do it, but she was telling me this summer. She's a ghost whisperer. I will have her.
She is a ghost whisperer. Like if there's a ghost in there, she'll detect it. Because the thing is, not everyone can detect it. You know what I mean? Like not everyone can detect the ghost.
Yeah, I definitely cannot.
Yeah, some people are just not sensitive to it. There's a range. Like Jason is the most able to see them. Then
really?
The daughter is second most, and I'm definitely like third.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what's either. Yeah,
I want none of that. So let's get
girl, me neither.
I want no parts of that.
Me neither.
I don't even want to talk about it. Like I don't even want to stir it up.
I mean, who are you gonna call?
I see what you did there. It's very cute.
I did that. You see how I worked in the Ghostbusters thing?
So cute. Not doing it. No, not going there.
No.
Let's get into some shit you need to know, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's move on. We're going to start with a very important election situation going on in Louisiana that I know a lot of people had all their eyes on these 4 measures that were on the ballot. I think last Saturday was when this election was. And the MAGA people, as I call all Republicans now, because I don't recognize the Republican Party anymore. It is MAGA, so I'm going to say MAGA. You can correct that if you want, but that's me saying that, not her.
No, you're right. Exactly.
Yeah. Even, wanted everybody to vote yes on this, right? Correct? Wanted them to vote yes. And they recruited 50 Cent, the rapper / actor / whatever, who's coincidentally building a movie studio in Louisiana. So he has a vested interest in playing politics with Republicans that are in power down there. But they lost. They lost bigly. As Donald Trump would say, one of his favorite words. They lost bigly. Tell us more about that, because I love that there are some key elections, races happening, in pockets of the country that could really give us an indication of how Trump is doing. Could be a measure, right, of how people are receiving and perceiving this administration thus far. I can't believe it's just 2 months in. But tell us about the importance of Louisiana and the push to get people to the polls, because usually they have very low turnout. And it was, I think, double of what they usually get. I might be mistaken in that, but it was relatively high considering what they usually get. But that was because of activists out there and community leaders really pounding the pavement and getting people to the polls. And it worked.
Absolutely. And, we say this with the context that, Terrence Woodward of Hit Strategies, which is a really great market research firm, he's done a lot of work on the sense of disempowerment that African American voters felt after the 2024 election, after Kamala Harris lost, Black folks who had had a very high perception of our power, that perception dropped to its lowest level since Hit Strategies has been recording the data. Like, it really bottomed out, particularly among younger and progressive voters who really felt completely disempowered, which is a bad thing because African American voters, particularly Black women, vote at the highest levels, even higher levels than white voters. And so when Black voters feel disempowered, it actually drags down all Democratic candidates, because Black voters staying home is part of the reason Kamala didn't win. So you want Black folks to feel empowered. Now, in the state of Louisiana, they've had generations of practice disempowering Black voters. African Americans are 32% of the population in Louisiana. It's one of the highest percentages of Black people in the entire country, of any state, and yet they have almost no control over state and local and federal government. There is a Democratic mayor in New Orleans, which is the big blue center of Louisiana. But because the rural counties control the state, Black people feel disempowered, with a couple of exceptions, right? So there was a 2-term Democratic governor named John Bel Edwards, who came in and gave and opened up Obamacare, because none of the southern states were allowing southern constituencies, their constituencies, to have expanded Medicaid, aka Obamacare. All the red states said no. When John Bel Edwards came in, he expanded Obamacare, which opened up healthcare to Louisianans. Louisiana was the number one incarcerator of people in the country. And of course, the number one incarcerator of Black people. It is like it's incarceration central, the most incarcerated carceral state in the whole country. He reduced that. And they had really mainly targeted Black people and Black men for incarceration, because of course, Louisiana operates a massive prison labor system. And they still derive a lot of their labor force from slave labor, because we know that's the Amendment 13 exception, which is you can enslave people if they're incarcerated. So that's why they farm out cheap slave labor.
Yeah. And
Louisiana is numero uno for decades, was numero uno in terms of doing that to people. Well, I'm gonna take these earrings off. I give up. So when John Bel Edwards won, he took Louisiana from being the number one incarcerator down. Like, he actually helped that. But then when he term limited out, for whatever reason, Black Louisianans kind of withdrew from the system and didn't vote at all. And Jeff Landry, who at the time was the attorney general of the state, ran for governor this last cycle, and he won re-election with like the turnout was like 22%. It was really, really low for a statewide election. And Louisiana is tricky. They put their statewide gubernatorial elections in off years so that people won't just not vote. They don't put it the same year as like the presidential election when more people turn out. They do it in the off year, which a lot of red states do to try to keep people from voting, because, low turnout helps Republicans. Long story short, Landry's election number was about 22%. That's a decent statewide number. But the Black turnout rate during the Landry reelect was like 10%. Like 10% of Blacks voted. And one of the main people who was on social media raising hell is a guy called Gary Chambers Jr. Gary Chambers Jr. is an incredible activist in the state. He ran for the United States Senate. You all might remember him as the guy who burned a cross and a Confederate flag in his ads. Remember, he did a cross burning send up where he talked about the Klan still being active in the South. And he literally burned a cross in his ad. That's the guy. And who also smoked, I think he did a weed smoking ad. Like, he was doing some really out there ads when he ran for the U.S. Senate. He didn't win, but he became a really important organizer in the state of Louisiana. He was one of the main organizers against these 4 amendments. As Jacque mentioned, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, was on the other side, because Curtis Jackson is trying to do a Tyler Perry in Louisiana. He went and bought like a couple hundred acres of land in Shreveport, rural Louisiana, and he would have gotten a massive tax break. These 4 amendments, one of them was a giant tax cut that would limit the amount that you could ever raise taxes in the state of Louisiana, and would give the Republican-controlled government total control over how you spent the tax money. There was another one that would create these special state courts, which would not be in control of the individual parishes, which would essentially allow you to incarcerate more people. There was a third one that was going to massively expand the number of juveniles who you could charge with with crimes that would keep them incarcerated. So it essentially would have created a pool of prison child labor.
And charge them as adults too, right?
And charge them as adults, right.
Yeah.
They want to be able to charge more children with crimes, basically.
Yeah.
And one of Landry's big things has been put a lot of blacks in prison. Like put as many blacks or people, put a lot of people in prison, but disproportionately that usually means black people. And then the fourth one, I think, was another sort of, I can't remember, the other one was more of an administrative one, but all of them lost, and they lost big. And interestingly enough, the one that lost the biggest, with 66% of people voting against it, was the one about treating juveniles as adults and incarcerating them. So that was the most unpopular one. The second most unpopular one was Amendment 2, which is the 50-cent one. And it was a huge loss. Jeff Landry, he went so far as to essentially bribe teachers in the state. Keep in mind, teachers in the state of Louisiana are forced to teach the Bible. There's a big lawsuit by teachers unions in the state because they're forcing every school to have the 10 Commandments posted and to literally teach the Bible instead of like regular history, right? That's him. So he doesn't care about teachers and has never cared about paying teachers. And his budget that he submitted to the state legislature does not have a teacher raise in it, but he promised a teacher raise if they would pass Amendment 2, which is the tax bill, the one to give rich people more tax cuts. So he's like, I will give teachers a bonus if they will do it. And 50 Cent used that in his ad. He's like, hey, this is going to raise teacher salaries. It was such a bullshit move. It backfired. It didn't work. And the people most responsible for it were Gary Chambers Jr. and a woman named Ashley Shelton. Ashley Shelton is the CEO of an organization called the Power Coalition. And Jeff Landry tried to say that George Soros and outside money defeated these amendments. Nah, bitch. It was Ashley Shelton and Gary Chambers Jr., who are very much native, local Louisianans. It's your own people. It's black folks who organized against you. And it was the teachers' unions and it was local activists. Local activism worked. And so to get back to where we started, the Terrence Woodward problem, which is how do we get black folks to feel empowered? In this case, African Americans represented 37% of the electorate. And they're only 32% of the population, meaning black people voted at higher percentages than white voters. They were the highest percentage voters were black voters. And the total turnout was around a gubernatorial level, about 22, 23%. That ain't great. It's Louisiana good, but it's so much better because it showed black Louisianans that they do have power and that they can change things.
Yeah. And so that example of how they were victorious in Louisiana, you have to look at it in different places. I know, there's something on the ballot in Wisconsin, or there's a very important Supreme Court race in Wisconsin going on. By the time this airs, it'll be over.
Yeah.
And then
Florida
in Florida,
has 2 congressional races. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And Republicans are worried because look, at the end of the day, prices are higher. Trump promised he would reduce prices. They're higher. He promised we were going to have an economic boom. We're close to a recession. The Wall Street is off and frantic. These tariffs, he's about to institute the single largest tax increase in not just American history, but world history. His Freedom Days tariffs, or whatever he's calling them. These tariffs are the highest tariffs that are going to jack prices up by 20% or more for everything from food to cars to electronics. Everything you buy that has foreign parts or that comes from foreign soil, and that's most of what you buy, is about to go up in price. He's wrecking the economy. Consumer confidence is plummeting. And in the midst of that, Republicans are concerned that between that and firing all these federal workers, many of whom are veterans, they're going to get hosed in the next elections because they still haven't figured out a way to completely suppress the American voter. So y'all voters, you are the ones who can stop this Doge nonsense and this Trump-Elon regime. Only voters can save us now. The courts are inconsistent. They are holding up pretty well. Congress is useless. Republicans in Congress are completely sold out and useless. All we got is you. All we got is voters.
And so we have to endure this for 4 years?
4 or more, because Trump has declared that he's going to run for president again. He's never leaving. I mean, I think we need to be clear that he does not intend to ever leave office. He wants to be Vladimir Putin. He doesn't ever want to
that's what he wants, right? And I get that there's really, from my purview, there seems to be nothing to stop him from doing whatever he wants.
Whatever he wants. I mean, the Supreme Court will just find an excuse for him to stay. Like, I don't trust John Roberts and the Supreme Court majority at all. So I would just assume they'll find a way to let him stay in there for life till he's dead, But the reality is, voters, they still haven't figured out a way to stop local and state elections from having power, because if they could have done it, they would have done it in Louisiana. If there's one place, if they could have rigged that election to ensure that the super rich in Louisiana, the small percentage of rich people like 50 Cent in Louisiana, he ain't from there, the small percentage of rich people, if they could have rigged that election to make sure that those 4 amendments passed, they would have done it. Trust me, if they could have done it. Now, Elon's doing his best to rig Wisconsin but he's having to bribe
handing out
people.
money. Isn't
He's
that
just
against
handing out
the
money.
law?
Of course it is. But the judge said, I don't know. It depends on the judge. And so you had a judge there that's letting him do it. So he's like using bribery or whatever. But the fact that he still has to do that shows you that they have not been able to rig the elections in these states enough that they can count on some sort of ballot rigging. They have to actually win the elections. And they're nervous about it. Florida, same thing. The Democrat in District 6 in Florida 6 has outraised the Republican. This is a seat that went for Trump by like 13, 14 points. Right. The fact that Democrats are raising more money and that Republicans are sweating these elections, even if Democrats don't ultimately win, it shows you Democrats need to run in every election, put a candidate in there, and people need to vote, because the only thing that could stop this regime at this point is voters.
That's it.
That's it.
There's no impeaching him. There's no court case that could come up that could remove him from office. No. There's nothing.
No. Remember in France, and what's so crazy, the woman who's the Trump version in France, she just got convicted of bribery and theft. I think she was stealing from her like campaign funds, Marine Le Pen. Not only was she convicted, but because she was convicted of that crime, she's been barred from running for office for 5 years. She was the front runner to be the next French prime minister, French president, and she can't even run. See, other countries actually have a rule of law. We don't. America is lawless. We're just like, you're a criminal, you're a felon, run if you want, stay for as long as you want. I believe John Roberts would let Donald Trump remain in office for life. I think he'd just find a way.
I think you can see that mostly right now with what's going on with these ICE agents and deporting people. Like it is out of control. And this latest man that they scooped up and sent to El Salvador, who was here legally, had his papers, has an American wife, an American child, and they just shipped him off and ICE admitted that this was a mistake.
Yeah.
But now they're saying they have no jurisdiction to bring him back.
He's stuck in El Salvador. And where they're sending these people, they're grabbing people who they claim are in Tren de Agua. I think it's called Tren de Arua or something like that. It's a notorious Venezuelan gang. And they're claiming that everyone that they're arresting is a member of this gang with no evidence, by the way. You actually have to be convicted of a crime.
No due process,
None.
Which is crazy.
They have picked up a hairdresser who's gay and fled Venezuela because he fears the Maduro regime. And so he came to the United States and is a literal hairdresser. They deported him. They grabbed a guy who was a soccer coach, a very popular soccer coach, because he has a tattoo. And they said that's a Tren de Arua or Tren de Agua, what do you call it, tattoo? It was a tattoo of his favorite soccer team. It was a soccer team tattoo, but they were like, nope, that looked like a gang tattoo to us. Sent him to the gulag. And then in El Salvador, their dictator, their autocrat is for money, for a fee, taking these prisoners and putting them in their notorious gulag for a fee. So it's become a business for El Salvador to take these prisoners who have had no due process, no court case, and locking them in this notorious prison. And then you had our Secretary of Homeland Security deportation Barbie, what's her name?
The dog killer?
Kristi Noem. Yeah, Kristi Noem, the dog killer, right? The one who like shot her dog in the head because he was too loud or something. That crazy woman took video, shot basically an EPK, shot a promo of herself in front of this prison, this notorious prison with all these shirtless, tattooed men behind her, locked in a cage. That if that's not a human rights violation, we should be before the Hague. Like the U.S., she should go before the Hague for that. That is like a giant human rights violation. Remember when Israel was taking prisoners that they were grabbing and in Gaza schools and taking these men in nothing but their shorts and in their underwear and their hands chained and marching them out and sitting them down on the dirt? That was also a human rights violation. South Africa tagged them for that in The Hague, And so it's like, how is the U.S. doing this not a violation of international law? Like, we are a lawless country right now. We are snatching students. I mean, ICE agents who are unmarked in black clothes.
That's the part that bothers me. I question whether or not they're actually ICE agents.
Who knows who they are?
Their faces are covered.
They're in black.
They're in unmarked cars. They're not giving any information to the people. That one guy whose pregnant wife was there recording him being taken by these so-called ICE agents.
That's secret police.
I don't think that all of them, maybe some of them, I've seen them with their
they show a badge eventually.
But some of them don't. Like that one guy they just snatched.
And
regime, you can get a fake badge. Why are they covering their faces?
Right.
Why are they showing up in these unmarked cars? Like, it makes no sense.
Oh, no, I think the reason they're covering their faces and showing up in unmarked vans is they don't want, because they know there are cameras everywhere. And so they don't want to be. Why
can't we see their faces?
Because they don't want to be identified.
Why?
They're the secret police. You can't be you can't be the secret police if people know what you look like.
These are not ICE agents. And I don't think in every case, here's my concern. Are all of these people ICE agents?
We don't know.
Say no. I think some of them are just people that are MAGA. Some of them probably were there on January 6th.
We don't know that.
We don't know. I don't know that. This is my theory.
We don't know.
I just feel like they're just thugs for hire by MAGA, who they're just hiring to go and grab people who have no authority whatsoever. And I think that the numbers are far greater than what they're reporting. I mean, what's to keep them from grabbing up Tyrone in the middle of the night, who's walking home from never to be heard of again?
Well, and by the way,
report him missing.
Right. And the thing is that it's not only, even there's been very sort of now well-known, very high, viral videos of Trump supporters getting snatched up simply because of the color of their skin and their accents. So literally you're having ICE agents or whoever that, we don't know if they're private military. We don't know. Because remember, the Republican Party wants to privatize the TSA. So they want to hire private security firms to do what the TSA does, which to me is terrifying. The idea that the former Blackwater will be doing, who is going to do this? But we don't know who this is. So from a journalistic point of view, we can't verify who these people are because some of them show a badge at some point, but they're in all black. Their faces are covered. They're snatching people up the street. This has to be called what it is if we're being accurate, just as journalists. This is abduction.
Kidnapping.
They're abducting these people. They're kidnapping them. And then they are told by judges, you can't deport this person. Leave them where they are. There is one woman who's a Turkish-American grad student, 30-year-old woman, snatched off the street. You can see her terror as these men come up to her. And I think one woman in all black and start grabbing her. And she's like, oh no. And she starts resisting. And then one of them shows her a badge. They put her in an unmarked car and whisk her away. They put her on a plane and sent her to Louisiana, which has become the go-to place to take these people. There's also a Columbia grad student who was done, Mr. Mahmoud Khalil. They just grab them and they send them to Louisiana. So now their lawyers can't reach them. Their families can't reach them. And then some of them pop up in this Salvadoran prison. So they're secreting them around. This is the biggest scam. Trump separating babies from their moms in the first term was the biggest scandal. Taking breastfeeding babies from their mothers and in some cases never giving them back. This is disappearing people like what you saw in old Central American dictatorships in the 80s and 70s. This is insane. And some of them, and some of it is not because of color of skin or accent. It's because of their ideas. And there's a news story, Al Jazeera, English, and others have done this story, that there's a far right group who is very pro-Israel expansionism. They call themselves ultra-Zionists, who are apparently, they have a deportation list that they're sharing with the regime. So they're telling the Trump Elon regime, here's a list of people, And they're bragging that they did that to Mahmoud Khalil. They're
Yeah.
saying, we did it. We have a list of people we want deported, and we're giving that to the government, and the government is acting on that list. I don't know if that's true. That is the reporting that you've seen out of Al Jazeera and other places. But if that's true, then there needs to be some sort of international law needs to be brought to bear on what the United States is doing, because there's no way that that's legal.
Yeah, it's not. It to me, the way that they are moving and the fact that you've had actual judges tell them,
hey, don't do this.
Send that plane, bring that person back. And they're like,
they're like, we can't. We're like, and they just
planes took off too. Like, they are defying orders from judges.
Yes.
I mean, it's lawlessness in the worst way. And to me, it's irresponsible for journalists to refer to them as ICE agents. They're allegedly ICE agents. We don't know that for a fact. We don't know that. And I don't trust this administration. So to call them ICE agents, I don't think it's right.
We don't know. And
we don't know.
It's
and
what
that's
we don't
point.
know that's frightening. And the fact, again, that, the Nation has done stories on this. Elie Mystal has done stories. There's lots of journalism that is trying their best. A lot of journalists are trying their best to cover these, but even getting in contact with the people who are detained is challenging. And so what you're seeing is, and if in fact this group, which by the way, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, designates this group in their designation is an extremist group. If a group that the ADL, which is very anti-Palestinian protest, they're against these protests, but even they say that this group is a extremist group. If the U.S. administration, if we're going to, I call them a regime because they act like a regime. Yeah. If the regime is taking a list from a private nonprofit and then working from that list to abduct people and then ship people out of the country, even though they have lawful student visas, someone has to look into that. But here's the problem. Who's going to look into it? Who's going to check them, boo? We don't have an FBI. We don't have a Department of Justice. They fired all the inspectors general.
And they're slowly dismantling the power of the
government's
media.
Gone. There's no government.
Media is not, the news media is not covering this the way that they need to. They just cover it like court stenographers. This happened today, with no context as to, how crazy this is to be doing this. The coverage of these people being abducted should be similar to when there's a plane crash, or like round the clock coverage should be happening.
Yeah. And if it was another country, and here's the way I judge it. If this was happening, but it was not the United States, it was a different country. If it was El Salvador doing it, or Brazil doing it, or Nicaragua doing it, or some African country doing it, right? If this was happening in Benin, how would we describe it? If right? I mean, if Saudi Arabia did it, how would we describe it? The United States is no different than any other country, and we're supposed to abide by the same rule of law. And there is something deeply lawless about this administration and abducting people who have legitimate student visas off our streets for ideological reasons or due to racial profiling, and in some cases admitting that it's not even the right person, and then disappearing them to a gulag in a foreign country that you're getting a fee for. Y'all, just think about what we just said. That's crazy. And this is the United States of America.
But it's crazy that it's not being covered by the media in a bigger way, in a more, this is alarming, right? Alarming. Like, where's the outrage from the media? It's there from more independent journalists and places like
The Intercept.
And it is from...
Yeah, you got to go to and so this is the reason so many Americans are going to independent media. You will get this coverage in ProPublica, Zeteo. You'll get it in The Intercept. You'll get it from the Rolling Stone magazine is doing phenomenal coverage. Wired is doing incredible coverage. Al Jazeera English, which is one of my go-tos. To be honest, CNN.com, they're online, and their international CNN still has a lot of strong journalism. There's still some... But I mean, I just get it online. CNN online is actually pretty strong, and CNN International, I listen to it on Sirius XM, and CNN International is actually still pretty strong. They have bureaus around the world, and they do pretty good journalism. There's still some great journalists at the Washington Post and the New York Times. But the challenge is a lot of Americans are pulling back from getting all of their news as they used to from broadcast journalism, for instance, because you're not going to get this. This is scary stuff, and it is not normal. And I think the media has to be really careful not to normalize this. People are not supposed to be being abducted and disappeared off of American streets. Yeah. This is not supposed to be happening.
No, it's not. It's a really big deal. And I'm disappointed that it's not getting the adequate amount of coverage with the intensity that it deserves.
I agree.
Well, that's our shit you need to know for today.
And by the way, one last shit you need to know, and I hate to say this.
What?
If you are a Black or brown person, or especially if you are Muslim, or you have a Latina, if you have an accent, if your accent is a little bit like this, walk with your passport. Just take your
What difference will that make if you have a passport? It's not going to make a difference. You'll never see court. They'll just snatch you up off the street and put you on a plane and send you to El Salvador. What does it matter if you have your papers? They could snatch up anybody.
No, they can.
They can.
But there has been
snatch up you or me.
There was a guy who was a Trump supporter. He had voted for Trump. He's very disappointed now, but it's like, yeah, okay, you voted for the leopards will eat my face party. And you never thought leopards would eat your face, but it is the leopards will eat your face party. He managed to get released because he had his real ID. You have that real ID ID. He had that ID with him, and that's why he was released. And so sometimes you can help yourself. And then the other piece is just know that you don't have to answer. Be careful. Learn your rights. Go on aclu.org. Learn your rights. If a random person comes up and stops you, do not have to answer questions without an attorney. Know an attorney's number. Have that on you at all times. And if you travel outside the United States, they can at the border search your phone. And if you refuse to unlock your phone, they can take your phone. So I would advise, if you're traveling, don't use your real phone. Don't take your real phone. Take a different phone. Take a phone that doesn't have any social media apps in it. That's just a phone. So I just would advise you get a phone to travel with and don't take your real phone. I know I've listened to a lot of stories about what happens in Maduro's Venezuela, and Trump and Maduro are very similar. And what they're doing, people who go to the store, for instance, they don't walk with their phone because any of their secret police can just stop you and demand to see your phone. And if you have anti-Maduro stuff in the phone, then you can get arrested. And there are people who are literally being turned back at our border, tourists, where they go through the phone and find anti-Trump tweets and say you can't come in. They find stuff that you've posted in your social media that's against Trump and you can't come in. They've arrested German tourists, Irish tourists. There are several countries, including Germany, who have issued travel warnings against the United States. And this is unheard of. There are travel warnings against us like we're war-torn Syria.
I can't. I just, to me, anybody can be snatched off the street at this point.
Anybody. Oh, no, it's the test
whether you have your passport with you or not.
Yeah.
I feel like the way that they're moving, I mean, you can't trust anything that they do anyway. You can't feel like, well, if I'm gonna, if I'm this or if I'm that, then I'll be cool. No.
Yeah, nobody's cool. Unless you are, and even if you are with them, they're taking people who are their own voters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have no sympathy for those people. Okay. So let's move on to our topics for today, because we got some to move through. And first up is about the firing, if you will, of Amber Ruffin from the White House Correspondents dinner.
Speaking of the regime.
Yeah, so the White House Correspondents dinner has been happening, I mean, and they for years. Decades. And they usually hire a comedian to perform there. Bob Hope has done it. Trevor Noah, so many people over the year. Bob Hope will give you to tell you how far back it's gone.
Yeah.
And Amber Ruffin was scheduled to be the comedian this year. And usually the comedian comes prepared with jokes to, talk about to make fun of the current administration.
It's a roast.
Usually to roast them. It's kind of like a roasting.
Yeah.
And they ended up firing Amber Ruffin and saying the White House Correspondents the association president said they're just not going to have a comedian this year. They want to focus on, the event and
the
scholarships and the awards that they give out. And that's that. I call bullshit on it. I feel like they're giving in to the Trump administration. I don't know that for a fact. I have nothing to, it's just a feeling that I have based on how a lot of media organizations are moving. I'm really disappointed about this, though. I love Amber Ruffin. I think she's brilliant.
Brilliant.
So funny. But apparently she criticized the Trump administration very recently. She was on a podcast for the Daily Beast.
Yes.
And I think based on that might have been the last straw. But she was saying, to her credit, and I like her, in response to being fired from this, she was on Seth Meyers' show recently talking about this. And she's a writer for Seth Meyers. She's brilliant comedian. But she was saying that she was not going to go there and go easy on the Trump administration and normalize all that they've done by also making fun of the Democratic side, the Democratic side. She was not going to do that. She was like, she said very openly on the Daily Beast podcast, she was like, I'm not doing that. Their expectation is for me to come in there and be like, oh, well, the Trump administration has done this, but, just kind of other siding it, both sides are bad kind of stuff. And so she said very openly, she wasn't doing that. So I'm proud that she took the stand that she did and didn't give in and softball her jokes to cater to the Trump administration. But I'm really disappointed in the White House Correspondents Association that ended up letting her go.
Yeah.
For this.
No, agree. And I am too. I agree. I echo everything that you said. Amber Ruffin is a brilliant, hilarious comedian. She has a show with Roy Wood Jr. on CNN where they do like a game show, and she's brilliant. Yeah. So you can still watch her on that. And look, here's the thing. The time between her doing that podcast and her getting fired as the entertainment of record, as the entertainment for this, it's a scholarship gala, and they do awards for journalists. It's a bit self-congratulatory, I have to be honest. And then they do these, great scholarships for young journalists. But the draw for the entire thing is the roast. It's the comedy roast. And the only president who's ever actually been funny at it is Barack Obama, who is our funniest president. Let's just be clear, because he has great comedic timing, and then he laughs at his own jokes, and it's actually hilarious. That, Keegan-Michael Key being his anger translator is one of the more famous ones. Barack Obama roasting Donald Trump in 2011, while we didn't know that they were having Osama bin Laden taken out at the same time. And he was so cool, calm, and collected. And he blasted Trump, which allegedly made Trump run for president. It made him want to run for president. And that's one of the reasons he ran, was to get back at Obama. There are some other famous ones that were, actually, really good. I think Trevor Noah's roast of not just the Biden administration, but of the journalists in the room. Like, he laid Meet the Press out. Was really hilarious. Roy Wood Jr. had this epic one about a year ago, and then everyone was like, oh, he's definitely getting the Daily Show, and then he didn't, and everyone was shocked because he was so funny that people knew he would get the Daily Show. So some of these really come out. They're very quite famous. There was a famous unfunny one by Jay Leno back in the day. So it's it's a thing, right? What was her name? Michelle Wolf. Michelle Wolf, who I always thought was black. I'm so shocked she's not black. Like, I still can't wrap my mind around the fact that she's not black.
She did it in 2019 and roasted Trump and
destroyed him.
What's her name? Sarah Huckabee
Sanders. She said she called her the lady from The Handmaid's Tale. She said, "Your Aunt Lydia from The Handmaid's Tale." And that lady's face was so stony. She knew it. She knew exactly what she was saying, and she did not enjoy it. But here's what's so funny. Trump never attended the White House Correspondents' dinner while he was president, because he has no sense of humor, per his niece, Mary Trump, and cannot stand to be laughed at. And the last time he went was when Obama roasted him, and he never went back. He was there as a celebrity, and he was so angry that Obama roasted him, he never went back. And while he was president, he refused to participate. It is part of the thing. I mean, one of the worst dinners was George W. Bush mocking the fact that he had no weapons of mass destruction and doing this whole "I'm going to search for it," and Karl Rove dancing around with the then Meet the Press host and the Washington bureau chief for NBC News while he's doing his MC Rove rap. So there have been some cringy ones too.
Yeah.
Which you can all read about on my Substack, by the way, at joyandread.com. But the reality is it is part of the tradition for the president to sit there and take the roast. Bill Clinton got absolutely shellacked by comedians while people mocked him for his sexual indiscretions to his face. And the reason that the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the only draw is not the scholarship brunch. God bless the scholarships. It's not the awards. It's the fact
comedian.
that in America, unlike in Iran, you can roast, or like Russia, you can mock the president of the United States to his face and not get arrested. That's
Yeah.
the whole point. The
Yeah.
fact that Trump refused to
True.
participate in that is a signal to his authoritarian tendencies that he does not believe that a mere comedian has the right to mock him to his face. Every president has sat through and taken the abuse. Clinton, both Bushes, Obama, they sit there and they take it. And when I tell you, Clinton was, what was his name? The radio host, like, eviscerated him, made fun of his sexual shit, like, to his face. But mocking the American president to his face is actually something important to see as the American people, because it shows you that we're not a kingdom. It shows you that we're not an autocracy, because you don't get arrested after mocking the president.
Well,
Trump
that is over.
But that brings us right back to where we were.
It's over talking about the media. Yeah.
You can't. And so the fact that the White House Correspondents Association is admitting that they, as the representatives of journalists in America, and Eugene Daniels is a brother, it's a Black man that's the head of the White House Correspondents Association, and they have sat through the indignity of the Associated Press being thrown out of the White House press corps, and essentially not allowed to be on Air Force One and cover Trump because they refuse to refer to the Gulf of Mexico, which that's the name, as the Gulf of America, because their standards are, we tell the truth. We're not going to fake it like some other media have. And the fact that they're not letting the White House Correspondents Association choose who sits where in the briefing room. They're doing that themselves. The White House Correspondents Association has taken a lot of abuse, and they've not been strong in their response, I don't believe. And I think a lot of members like April Ryan, who did a whole rant about this on her social media, are very dissatisfied that the entity that's supposed to represent them is not being strong. Canceling Amber Ruffin within 24 hours of a White House official criticizing her on X Twitter told you why they did it. Because if they knew who she was, they Googled her and knew her comedy when they booked her. They knew she does political comedy. She writes for Seth Meyers, who does political comedy, who's done the roast himself. They knew exactly what kind of comedy she does. They knew she was going to roast the regime. And when she went and did a podcast and criticized Trump, they fired her within 24 hours. So don't try to lie and say, we just don't want it to be about politics. Bullshit. It's always about politics. That's the whole point. Yeah. And if you guys are going to cancel her, just admit that you're scared of the regime and you don't want to make Trump mad. Just admit it. Don't lie and try to make it look like, oh, we just want it to be about the scholarships. Yeah. Ain't no celebrities. Celebrities show up to that. They're not showing up there for the scholarships. God bless the scholarship recipients. But you're not getting the Kardashians showing up at the White House Correspondents' Dinner to watch some scholarships. They show up to see the comedian.
Well, speaking of people who show up, I hope that a lot of journalists, celebrities boycott. I hope that they don't go. No one can go.
Yeah, and also I went a couple times. I went a few times. I went a couple times when Obama was in, and I did go to the one Roy Wood Jr. was at. That's where I got COVID. But so literally, I've been a few times, maybe 4 times. But I always felt a little bit off about it because there's something unseemly about journalists schmoozing with the administration like that, and being in a room schmoozing with them when we have to cover them, and we need to be able to be tough when we cover them. I've worked on the Obama campaign. I was tough on Obama. There were times when I was tough on him because I had to be, right? As a journalist, you have to be able to step outside of yourself and cover the regime strongly. Hard to do that when you're partying and drinking with them. And then also just the celebrities showing up. It's something about the dinner that I never felt great about. So if it were me, if I were still working for a mainstream organization that gets tickets, I wouldn't go. Yeah, personally,
I definitely wouldn't go with Trump in the White House now.
God. And he's not even going to go. Girl, he was boycotting it anyway.
I bet he changes his mind and goes now. I bet he goes because of this action. I bet you he goes. Watch. I bet he goes. But I will say that I was at one of the White House Correspondents' dinner years ago.
Jesus there, because you be around. Was Jesus at this one?
No, that's when I met Donald Trump. Omarosa. I was hanging out with Omarosa, and she introduced me to Donald Trump. This was a long time ago.
This is going in the book, by the way.
This was the first time that I went, when I met John McCain, Senator John McCain, and I met Donald Trump in the same night. And then that was the first time I went when I was still at BET, and then I went back when Obama was there for his last one, because I saw you that night.
Was he
were all
orange?
with April Ryan, and we were all partying. It was a lot of fun. Cameron was there.
Yeah. Was he orange in hue?
I can't remember, but he definitely was not talking about, like, it was early. It was, The Apprentice Donald Trump. It was before he even got involved in any politics, except for Central Park 5. But yeah, met him at that point. So anyway, I hope nobody
Going in the book.
Shut up. Let's talk about Marvin Sap. Let's talk about Pastor Marvin Sap, who is in some hot water. I know.
Never would have made it.
People changed it to never would have paid it. There's so many jokes out there now about Marvin Sap. Yeah. So not apparently. He was at a conference or convention. He was on the stage. He said, he has spoken out about this. He said his job was to raise money to help cover the cost of the conference. And there was $40,000 that needed to be raised. And we've all seen the video. Now, this was a somewhat old video. This didn't recently happen. This happened like last summer. And apparently, when it was time to take up the collection, he instructed the ushers to close the doors. And he was like, no, close them. Close them. Close the doors. Close the door. I was like, oh, come on. Oh. So he was saying, in his defense, part of his job of what he does is raising funds. So that was the fundraising part of what he was there for. And then he says there is always a security issue when you're in in churches and money is being raised. I do know, and you've probably heard of this too, of churches being robbed during the collection. So he was saying that it was an issue of security, and this is what he was supposed to do, raise the money. And he said that there was apparently $40,000 raised. And
he said, I locked it. I closed it. I closed it.
He said that he did not receive any of those funds, that none of that money went to him. And he's saying he's getting death threats. He did an interview with Ricky Smiley, and he's, very upset. Never would have paid it. Never would have raised it if I knew. If I knew. Girl,
listen. He said, I locked them doors on y'all. How about that? How about you can't leave? How about you can't leave till you open up your wallet? Open up your wallet. You can't leave until you open up your wallet. Until you pay me, you can't leave. You thought you could go home, but you can't get out of here.
Not pay him. He was raising. This is out of his mouth. You believe what you want to, but that's what Marvin is saying. But I always feel like money being raised at church.
Ooh, come on.
At these churches, I always feel a little funny about it, because you've got people on fixed incomes.
Come on.
You've got pastors like Creflo Dollar, who back in the day wanted his congregation to help him buy a $60 million plane.
Listen.
Which people actually felt, and I've spoken to people who felt that he deserved this plane.
Oh, people be like, I need my pastor to be in a Bentley, because that just shows the love of God. It shows his favor. No, it does not show his favor. It shows that y'all gave him all that money to get a Bentley.
They don't need all that. They don't need all that. They definitely don't need a private plane. But whole thing about
I need my pastor to fly private, because I don't feel like the Lord will watch him that well on American Airlines or Spirit.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And I think there should be better accounting in some of these churches about where that money is going. It's like, how long we had a building fund for 20 years. The building not paid for yet?
And then it's multiple envelopes. It's the regular offering, the love offering, the building fund. Right. You got like 4 envelopes, and they expect you to put a 20 in each one. It's like, hold on a second. When we were kids, my mom would give us $1. We each got $1. And you take the $1 and like, dink.
I used to love to put my money in the envelope and write my little information on it. And like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate, because this is going to make people further question going to church, tithing, or giving money to support churches. And there are a lot of churches, I should say, that do
great work.
Take that money and do great work for the community.
And by the way,
internationally and all the things. Absolutely. And so I think that it's unfortunate that this happened the way that it did, because it further, drives home people's skepticism of church, particularly the Black church. And a lot of people, the numbers are down as far as attendance and membership. They're down greatly, and things like this do not help.
And the bottom line is also, when churches are at their best, they're able to look. Our civil rights movement was organized through the church. Dr. King was a pastor, and pastors, because churches were the one place where white folks would let Black folks organize without really questioning them, because they're like, well, at least you're in there praising the Lord,
praising the Lord,
reading that slaves obey your masters. As long as we're reading slaves obey your master. We only read
they're the good ones. They're the good neighbors.
They're the good ones. And so, because for so long they didn't question what was happening inside those churches were a place of refuge. Now, when they did figure it out, they would blow those churches up, which is why Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney were killed, because they were investigating a church that they had been burned down or bombed, because the Klan figured out they were organizing in that church. They went to investigate it. But anywho, as long as they were able to get away with it, churches were very critical to the growth of the civil rights movement. There aren't a lot of churches who are activists like that. I want to, this is a point where I'd love to big up Jamal Bryant.
I was just
trying to bring that back, right? Like, he is and Freddie Haynes too. I'm going to give you a pass to Freddie Haynes, but Jamal Bryant has really leaned into, as has Bishop William Barber,
he's Bishop William Barber. He's always done that type of work, right? Always.
Yeah. I mean, you think about like who we grew up with in terms of activists. It's, it's Reverend Al Sharpton. It's even
Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Jesse Jackson is a pastor. And so we're used to it. Dr. King. And so they were always pastors. And so Jamal Bryant is the person behind the Target Fast. The Target Fast is a church-born movement. They're pushing for church people to be the foundation of that Target boycott. So when churches do right, they do really right, So and I come from a church, Bishop William Curry, Bishop Victor Curry, I should say, in Miami, was the church I used to attend in Florida. And Bishop Curry was all about that. He was all about activism. He was an old-fashioned activist pastor. Now, they did.
The unfortunate part is that so many churches are not a part of that, and we've gotten away from that. And a lot of churches, even with this past election, chose not to get involved. And a lot of Black churches chose to stay silent and really not take a side or encourage their congregation to vote for Kamala Harris. I think there were a lot of congregations, some Black churches, that told people to vote for Donald Trump,
It's crazy.
Depending on who their pastor was. We've gotten away from that leadership from the Black church, unfortunately. So I do have a lot of respect for Jamal Bryant, who was on Read This, Read That. Yes. When we came back early on and talked about the Target Fast, and I love him so much. Moving on.
And I want to, by the way, I was just going to say, big up to all the pastors that are doing that. Oh, I was going to say this. I wonder how all those Black churches who told their congregants to vote for Donald Trump felt when he swore in as president and didn't put his hand physically on the Bible.
They made excuses for it. They don't care. They don't care. This is the thing that I try to tell people. They don't care. People who voted for Donald Trump do not care. They don't care what he does. They make excuse. He can hold the Bible upside down,
which he did.
Corinthians 2, or whatever he called it.
He mocks the Bible. He actually mocks the faith of Christians.
This is the thing. It's like, I can't even take pleasure in, the leopards getting their faces eaten in that whole situation, because they don't care. They just want the power that comes with this man being in office. Right. They just want the win. They don't care. They don't care.
And also, Jesus did say that you are to love the immigrant and the poor, the elderly, the sick, and the shut in. Like, you're supposed to actually love the immigrant.
Those people, you got Paula White out here pounding the pavement for Donald Trump, selling stuff.
Unbiblical.
Selling things to make money off
selling
of
a Bible. Selling a Bible.
Girl, I can't. It's a hot mess.
It's mockery.
Listen,
it's a mockery of
don't care. They don't care. These I can't.
Sad.
Let's talk about Tamar Braxton, who announced on social media, and I don't know if this was part of the taping of the Braxtons. I have to find out, but she announced that she's taking PrEP, which is a pre-exposure drug to prevent HIV.
Yeah.
because she says she hasn't been dating for about a year and some change. And now she's about ready to get back out in those streets.
Mm-hmm.
And she says she wants to be prepared, she said, because outside is crazy. That's a direct quote from her.
Right.
And I will say, it brought up a conversation amongst our producers, Camille and Marquita and myself and our intern Lauren. We were talking about this in one of our production meetings, editorial meetings, and we were talking about, just whether or not, even if you're in a committed relationship,
Yeah.
should you be protecting yourself, whether it's a marriage, a long-term relationship, whatever, and you're having relations, because all couples don't. Should you still be using condoms? Should you be taking PrEP like Tamar is? Because there's so much cheating and things that go on in relationships, and you never know. I was on a panel at HIV.
Man. She was like, women. She said women are sharing the same man, so they gotta.
Well, that's a part of it too, but that's cheating. That's what I'm saying. She's not just saying they're knowingly sharing men. She's basically saying people are cheating. So it's cheating. And so the conversation that we were having is, and my side, is whether or not, even though you're in a long-term committed relationship, because a lot of times when you get into that, you're like, okay, I can be free. I don't have to use any protection. I don't have to worry about anything. But listen, how many times have people been in relationships and ended up catching a little something from their significant other? I think that it is time that people protect themselves, because the HIV/AIDS rate, in Georgia, in Texas, in a lot of places in the South where they've cut out Medicare, it's a Medicaid rather. It's the numbers are up. It's crazy, particularly among Black women in all of the southern states. And all the states that it's up in, they all have MAGA governors.
Yeah, they do.
All of them do.
Including Florida.
Yeah. Florida's another state where the numbers, Black women need to be careful. I don't blame Tamar for taking this drug, because all it does, I'm sure there are side effects. I'm not a big fan of pharmaceuticals, but if you're going to be out here in these streets, I hope first and foremost you're wearing that somebody's got some protection.
Somebody needs to get
some condoms in your pockets, that you're not just raw dogging it out there. We should not be doing that.
I don't know what I can add to the raw dogging comment, but yes,
you can just let it linger.
We're gonna let that marinate, but maybe not too long, because ew. So I definitely think because we, having lived in Florida, and when I was there, Florida was the fastest growing HIV infection rate, and it was Black women who were the center of the epidemic, and it was because you had a lot of women who, to your point, were having relationships with men who had multiple partners or who were closeted, and so we're having relationships with men and women. Or who had come from the carceral system, where they were coming out of there unknowingly with HIV and then going home to a woman partner. And so Black women were really catching hell when it comes to HIV/AIDS. So I think you have to do whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm not a huge fan of adding pharmaceuticals if you don't have to. Condoms are a thing. They exist. And if you're out there having multiple sexual partners, it is wise to protect yourself. However you need to do that, whether that is taking PrEP or using a condom. And if you don't trust your significant other, and you feel like you need to get PrEP, and you're in a committed relationship, you've answered your own question about whether you can trust your significant other. If you feel like you need to be in PrEP and you got a relationship going, you know that you can't trust that person. So you better get on it and maybe leave them.
Well, listen, a lot of people are in relationships and they trust their partner, and then they end up getting
they still end up getting
transmitted disease, or somebody has a baby on the side or something.
Or somebody got a baby on the side.
And so what Tamar is saying, and what people, like I said, I was on this panel, and these, it was an HIV/AIDS panel. We were talking about the prevalence of it in the Black community, and they were saying if you're having sex, no matter what the situation, you should be on this drug.
And by the way, in this current administration, they are eliminating a lot of the funding for the research and federal response to HIV and to all diseases. We have
they did it in Georgia already.
Yeah. And and that's where the CDC is. The Centers for Disease Control is located in Georgia, and they are defunding. They just let go a bunch of people from the National Institutes of Health, I believe. Like the federal healthcare industry is being dismantled, and RFK Jr. is dismantling the vaccination encouragement sort of regime from the federal government side. So we're going into very unknown territory, 19th century style territory, where you're not going to have a federal government that broadly supports things like vaccination, that broadly supports things like preventive medicine, and that
or
is
information.
more,
We're not even knowing. I mean, the measles are rampant in about 3 states in this
More
country,
than 3.
maybe more,
It's
based
more
on the numbers that we have.
Yeah,
And
it's more.
we're not knowing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I turn around, somebody's really, really sick. Do
Yeah.
they have COVID? Do they have the flu? Nobody knows. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Nobody knows. But when it comes to HIV/AIDS, I think a bigger part of the problem, a lot of this funding went to making sure that people were getting tested.
that's
You know,
right.
like that could help in prevention.
Yeah. I'm just looking at a headline here from CNN that says the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, Atlanta-based, buried a measles forecast that stressed the need for vaccinations. The RFK Jr. is talking about bringing on board the current Surgeon General of Florida, who's an anti-vaxxer. It's really scary. There's 422 measles cases as of today in just Texas alone. And we're talking about an outbreak that is essentially becoming out of control. And we have a director of Health and Human Services in RFK Jr. who has no scientific background and who seems to be not a fan of things like vaccines. And I know when it comes to HIV, there was a whole sort of federal protocol and a federal system that tried to do prevention. And I think they're out of that business. So,
Yeah. Well, there's a great article in the Atlanta Voice that talks about the HIV/AIDS crisis not being over, and it really specifies how an alarming number of Black women are contracting this.
Yeah.
And we really have to ring our own alarm. To your point,
Yeah.
we can't wait on the CDC. We can't wait on government agencies to give us the information.
They're not
We
gonna.
really, and the best way, watch this full circle moment. The best way to make sure that you are not going to get sick is to lean into your wellness. Not only, and wellness is, wearing condoms, protecting yourself when you're, not having unprotected sex. But it also is because like I said, a lot of people are getting sick and ending up in the hospital. Some of my friends not knowing, until they end up in the hospital, that it's the flu or pneumonia or COVID or something like that. We really have to lean into our wellness, you guys, and take care of ourselves. So check out my 3-day wellness reset.
One headline: Trump team guts AIDS eradication program and slashes HIV research grants. More than 200 federal grants for research related to HIV and AIDS have been abruptly terminated in the past few weeks. That's a March 31 headline on nature.com. So be careful out there.
Well, it makes Tamar's point, right? It's like, listen, you don't want to find out, that you shouldn't have been trusting this person.
Yeah.
So be careful out there, you guys. When
it all got hoes in different area codes, and you didn't know.
We sure do. And with that, we are going to end this episode of Read This, Read That
on that bright and sunny, hopeful note.
Bright and sunny note. We are done, but be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on our YouTube channel. And be sure, we're going to have a link there for you to head on over to our Substack, the Read This, Read That Substack, where you will find show notes with links to everything that we talked about and some other details. You'll find out over there. So definitely go and subscribe for free for now to our Substack. No, it'll always be free, but eventually we are going to add a paid element to our Substack for some extra content. And we're working on that right now.
Absolutely. And be sure to also follow Jacque Reid on the Jacque Reid Experience, where you're going to get all of her wellness tips, all of the good things. You can also follow vegansexycool.com because you can be vegan, sexy, and cool all at the same time. And Jacque has so many great tips of things to eat, things to do, things to wear. She has fabulous fashion tips. That's my favorite thing about vegansexycool.com is the fashion. I actually just recently bought, Jacque, I have to show you the picture of my vegan faux leather dress that I bought. Maybe I'll take a picture of it and I'll send it to ours so we can put it in the Substack as well.
I would love that. That'd be good.
I bought it in 2 colors. I bought it in black and brown. It's super cute. And so you can find all of that at vegansexycool.com. And be sure to like and subscribe, you guys. If you want to support what we're doing here at Read This, Read That, if you love the cousins, then we need you to grow our subscriber base. So please hit like so that we know you like us, and hit subscribe so that you can never miss an episode of Read This, Read That. Also, you can hit that share button and send this episode to all your friends so they can enjoy it along with you.
That part.
And also understand about ghosts.
I don't know how I can't with that.
Fact.
I can't with that whole situation. Yes, please tell a friend. Spread the word about Read This, Read That, because we would love your support. And be sure to go to joyannread.com for all things Joyanne. I love that you have it all centrally located. So all you have to do is go to joyannread.com.
One-stop shopping.
You will find all the things. You've been writing some great pieces on your Substack. Stop it. Some great pieces on your Substack.
My dog
enjoyed. And I love that you be sure, and we'll link this, the New York Times article about you and Don Lemon and Jim Acosta on Substack. I've been telling everybody about Substack. You introduced me to Substack, and I absolutely love it. I'm still learning about how to work it, but I'm getting there. I'm getting good with it.
It's fun.
But yeah, we'll link that New York Times article as well, and all the things. I mean, you're not resting. No, you did rest a little bit this past weekend, but she's out there doing some amazing things. But support the work at joyannread.com. And with that, my dog Bernie is like, let's go.
Bernie's like, let's go
already.
Nala and you know what's so funny? Nala hears someone barking. She has no idea who it is, so she's just staring at my apparatus here like, who's barking?
Who's that?
You're smiling though, right? You smiling? Good. Yes. All right. With that, goodbye.
So back to my water heater and all the things happening here. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.